Welcome to Caregiver Cast with Mary Elaine Petrucci. Are you overwhelmed raising a family, working full-time, caring for a parent or grandparent? It can be challenging when you're doing it alone. Caregiver Cast helps busy, burned-out professionals reduce their stress and overwhelm to create a better caregiving experience for themselves and their loved one. Caregiver Cast brings caregivers together with experts who provide information in a variety of areas. In each episode, you'll get tips on topics such as finance, legal, medical, self-care, community resources, mindset, and more. We're here to make your caregiving journey a more rewarding one. Acquire the confidence and skills to be a more capable caregiver by implementing the resources and strategies from these expert thought leaders. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. And now here's your host, Mary Elaine Petrucci.
Welcome to Caregiver Cast. My name is Mary Elaine Petrucci. My guest today is Rachael Wall, who is a Psych-K facilitator, and she is in the UK. And before I formally introduce Rachael to you, I will give you some background information about her. Over the years, Rachael has undergone training in many areas to help deepen her knowledge to help people live a healthy, happy life in the quickest and fullest way possible. The area of greatest interest is the mind-body link, not only for how mindset can affect health, but also all areas of life, most importantly, our happiness. After reading Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, she learned of Psych-K, and there was no looking back.
Absolutely.
She trained as a facilitator and now continues to work with people to help to provide the mindset foundations to create the life they desire. Ultimately, our subconscious mind is in control of how we think, feel, and our patterns in life. However, the most important thing to understand is that your subconscious mind, thoughts, beliefs, and programming can be changed to ones that support you towards your goals in life. So formally, I want to now introduce Rachael to you. Welcome, Rachael, to Caregiver Cast.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me along, and hello, everybody listening.
People often say that what happens in our childhood leaves a mark. So why is that?
Essentially, up until we're about 12 years old, then our predominant brainwave patterns are such that absolutely everything we're seeing, hearing, feeling, experiencing, witnessing is all being just recorded in our subconscious minds. So those repetitive experiences that you have or things that you see, even sometimes at an age where you can't understand what's happening or you can't necessarily verbalize and interact with the people around you, it's all being recorded on that subconscious level. And that's there as a safety mechanism. It's there to keep you safe and for your mind to spot, if there's any dangers or alerts out there. And everything that's being recorded on our subconscious mind in many ways can be really helpful. But when there's things that have been more traumatic or things that as you become older in life, then that gateway between the conscious and the subconscious mind closes, but then you move into more analytical thinking, making decisions or forming opinions of what you see around you. And the problem is that if when you're much younger, you've seen things that are contradictory to how you think now, then because it's held within your subconscious mind, your subconscious mind is always going to, your subconscious mind, I think of it as being the most literal person you've ever met. Everything's very black and white and just is. So if those memories are recorded and stored as they are during those first 12 years of your life, then unless you do something to change that, then it will always play out. And it's why those memories really are so powerful from our early and formative years. Yeah.
That's amazing. So let's just step back a little bit. Why were you searching for something like Psyche to help you? Where were you in your journey, and why did this become like a critical aspect of your life that you wanted to change?
So there's two parts to that as an answer. So one is on a personal personal front. Then I did a lot of personal development over the years, and the one thing that I really remember really stands out for me was when I watched The Secret. And in The Secret, they speak of the fact that a thought is just a thought, and you have the power to change a thought, which in many ways is also very much easier said than done. It's not, it's easy to know that. However, your subconscious mind is a lot more powerful. It's processing at a far greater speed than our conscious mind. And so I found in one respect that really empowering. It's like, hang on, I can have a choice as to whether I want to entertain this thought or whether I want that thought to have power over me or not. But through other reading and personal development, then there were still things there that were in many ways holding me back in life. So myself in my own childhood, I was bullied a lot. I as a result of that had really low self-confidence and self-esteem. Within my work, I felt like a bit of an imposter. And so I was seeking ways to help overcome that. And for me, that was through Psyche, and that those things you could do very easily without even having, so for example, talking about the bullying in my childhood, without physically needing to go there. It was more about the subconscious programming for helping to build my self-esteem and self-confidence. And actually then realized that what I found to be easy within my work was actually my gift. It wasn't a case of, oh, well, I'm going to be found out any minute. It was just something that came very naturally to me. So Psyche really helped me along that front, and that was more, like I said, part of that personal development journey. But also, I'm not currently practicing as a chiropractor, but that was where my initial training was. And so I was training in my early 20s. I came from a very medical model upbringing, where you go to the doctor, you take a tablet, be a good girl, and then you'll get better. And during my training, I was training with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s that had a lot more knowledge and experience than I did. And they were talking about this mind-body link. And to me, that was like completely new at that time. So this would have been in the late 1990s. And there was a few really standout books. So one of them was Candice Pert, Molecules of Emotion. And then that led on to Bruce Lipton, and where he then, the biology belief, where he talks about Psyche. But also when I was treating patients, my first experience was whilst you're training under supervision, you can treat other people. And I ended up treating, I lived in a shared house at that time. And so I was treating a housemate. She had chronic and recurrent neck pain. And we did 3 treatments in total, and we had the same response each time. She got better for 24 hours, and then the pain would just come back. Now, coincidentally, she hated her job. She would come home every evening moaning about her boss. And she then came home one day and she went, "Do you know what? I don't care. I don't care that I don't have another job to go to. I've handed my notice in." And so, we dealt with the fallout that evening. The next morning at breakfast, she popped her head around the door and she's like, "Rachel, you're not going to believe this. My neck pain's gone." And I was like, oh my God, her boss quite literally was a pain in the neck. And so, that kind of breaking the link for her was to no longer be in that job and be around that person. But I was then noticing within my practice that physical pain was happening, but at times when maybe there was some financial worries, or there was a relationship breakdown, or there was a house move coming up, or the threat of a redundancy, and all of those kinds of things. And I felt very helpless as a chiropractor, because I was like, hang on, I can see that this is, although somebody's coming in for a physical reason, it's not a physical problem. And how can I send people in the right direction, not realizing at that time that changing the beliefs, and there can be some like where there's stressful events, you can release the perception of that stress, so that then the event is no longer having a physical impact on your body. So I then went on a quest to search for either where can I notice them to refer people onto, or how can I help people whilst I'm seeing them while I'm treating them. And at the same time, when you're working with people, you build that relationship, you get to know their lives very well. So sometimes, although somebody's coming in with a physical issue, there's other things that are surrounding that where, like the modality that I use, Psyche, can really help. And then as life improves in other areas, then the physical issues don't arise in the same way. So yeah, it was those two, and they just combined and merged.
Yes, they did. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your personal journey and how going to one conference really impacted you in the sense that you made this incredible mind-body connection and did a lot of research. And now you're pursuing that through Psyche. So thank you very much for sharing. Let's just go back to what you were saying earlier about childhood trauma. So is there a way to break free from all of these repeating patterns and undesirable, unwanted memories in life?
There is, and that's the most empowering thing, really, just to understand is that is possible, and also that it can be done in a really gentle way, and in a way that's in some instances you won't need to relive it and bring it all back up to the surface. And that's the beauty of the Psyche process, is we use what are known as permission protocols. So if you're working with somebody, then you're always checking that it's the right time to work on something, but also so, for example, with one person that I worked with, they had like 5 really significant childhood events that through counselling they remembered had happened, and it helped to explain a lot about their behaviours and why they reacted to certain things the way that they did. But the counselling that they had in that instance, they discovered what the root cause was, but weren't able to then move forwards beyond that. And so in total they had two Psyche sessions, but the first 1.5 was all about building up their self-esteem and their self-confidence, and knowing that life can be better and life can be different. And also that from those things that happened in the past, kind of learn from them and move forwards. And then it was only in like the second to last process that she had to think about one of them directly. And the process that we use within Psyche is really, really gentle. It took about 3 or 4 minutes. And afterwards, she was then able to say, do you know what? It wasn't right that it happened, but if I carry around the emotions of it, then I'm not helping myself. But also that person reacted, did what they did because they actually didn't know any better. They were repeating a pattern from their childhood that they weren't aware of. So it doesn't make it right, but at the same time, I can see where they were coming from. And so they were just able to then move forwards because of it. So absolutely incredible. So there's, within Psyche, there's really gentle ways of doing that. But then, there are also other options out there. So, earlier I was saying about when you're in your childhood, that your brain waves are that everything's, all those repeating patterns and messages that you're getting are being recorded into your subconscious mind. A lot of those brainwave patterns during that time period are similar to those of meditation and hypnosis. So that's why they can also be really helpful, because it's the brainwaves that allowed those memories or recordings to be held in place, are also the way of accessing and being able to change those and be able to move forwards from them as well. And then there's also, things like journaling, which can be really helpful, and just, gratitude journaling about seeing the positive in everything that you have right now, roof over your head, or, food to eat, or, whatever that is. But then also gratitude about how you would like things to be in the future, to really help to tune into that and help your mindset be able to focus on what's good and what the positives are in any given moment in time as well. So that in itself can be really empowering.
It is. It sounds very empowering that you can, I can see where doing a gentle approach to those past traumas can be released, whether it's through, working directly through the Psych-K process or journaling or doing this gratitude for what they do have and the positives in their lives. That's really, really critical. So now that we've explained how these repeating patterns happen over and over again, I guess I can say my life was like that.
Yeah.
What exactly is Psych-K?
Psych-K, really, it's a method, really. It's a philosophy as well, in that, we're all spiritual beings living a human life, and that change is possible. And there's within Psych-K, we use the kind of the actual process of doing it, we call balances. And essentially within Psych-K, it's taking that we ultimately have an inner wisdom or a higher wisdom, to know the reasons or the messages behind why certain patterns are happening. And so within Psych-K, we're able to find out what those are, and then to be able to make those changes to help move you towards how you would like things to be. So within that, I suppose that the important things to explain are that within Psych-K, the processes themselves are doing they bring you into what's known as a whole brain state. So the whole brain state does two things. So one is that, you have the two hemispheres of the brain. So that your left side is very analytical and very black and white, and the right side is much more abstract and creative and intuitive. And if there's particular stresses or problems or repeating patterns that you can't solve, often when you're thinking about those things, it's like they're, from a subconscious mind point of view, they're actually happening in the here and now. There's no kind of past, present, and future. It's just the here and now. And so when you're thinking about those things, then your brain will be kind of firing unevenly. It won't be working all together and coherently. And so when you're in that whole brain state, what then happens, it lowers that resistance to the subconscious mind to allow the positive changes or the positive beliefs to be installed at a subconscious mind level. But it then also helps you to see the solutions and see the bigger picture. So like I was saying about the person that I worked with, where they had all of the traumas, that they were able to look at the whole situation from a different perspective and see things from a different point of view. And that's often the way, and that can be really interesting when you're working on the process, that actually when you then think back to those things, you either can't connect to them, or you just your whole perception of everything just changes. So that's the one element that Psych-K really helps with. And as far as there's been research that's been carried out that showed that whole brain state happens within 98% of cases within 10 minutes. So it's really powerful, it's quick. And for yourself, when you're experiencing it, sometimes an emotion can come up and then it just ebbs away, or it's actually really calming and peaceful experience. But the way that we're then accessing that higher wisdom or that higher knowledge or finding out the subconscious beliefs is essentially, I think of it as having a conversation with your subconscious mind. So if working with somebody in person, then you use muscle testing. And then over Zoom, I work using a pendulum. So there's a process that I can do, which means that by seeing which way around the pendulum spins, you can see the response exactly as it would be if we were working in person together. But to give you an idea of the type of testing, so you're accessing the subconscious mind, and then so if something is 100% true to you, there's no stress around it, that it's like a really positive thing, something that your subconscious mind believes, you can either think about a situation, depending on the way that we're working in a session. You can think about a situation, past, present, or future, because it can be about the future as well. Or you would say a particular sentence out loud. So, I am confident, as an example. And then you would then do a muscle test. So you have your arm outstretched, and then you just, as the person if I was working with myself, then as I do the push down, if it's 100% true, then the muscle will stay strong. Now, if there's any stress surrounding it, or the subconscious mind just doesn't believe it at all, then you would say the same sentence and you get a temporary weakening of the muscle, which shows that, okay, this is something that we need to work on. So, and sometimes, like I was saying earlier, that where you're in your childhood, you're in those hypnotic brainwave patterns and everything's been recorded to the subconscious mind. Then as an adult, you can realize that things can be a different way or something's not true. But if it's not held in the subconscious mind, you will always get that appropriate response. It's all the subconscious mind always tells its truth. So sometimes, when we're working together, you can say something and you think, oh no, I believe that, and then you do the testing and then no, okay, this is why this pattern is not changing, or why my situation or my present isn't changing, because ultimately my subconscious mind doesn't believe it. So it really just help to kind of point you in the right direction of the areas that really need work and just change them.
Wow. Sounds really powerful. This kind of goes into the next question I have. So what happens during Psych-K? Is it like a hypnosis training? Please explain.
Yeah, sure. So it's not hypnosis at all. So with it, like, so if we were to work together for the first time, a session would be split into some different stages. So for the first part, and as much as you're comfortable talking about things, you just share as much as you're happy to. The first part of the session would be that you would talk about how things are now. So in relation to what it is that you would like to be different. So you would talk about it, what's going on, the type of things that are happening, and then I would ask questions. And so my role really is just to hold the space for you to feel comfortable sharing, and also to help to bring everything to the surface to talk about. And then the really important kind of second part of that first part of the session is for you to describe how you want things to be, because it's really important to have context for your subconscious mind to know what it's aiming for. And as is often the way, it's the mind and it's human nature. It's very easy to talk about how you don't want things to be. So, I don't want to always be in this type of relationship. I'm fed up of being in this type of cycle, rather than I just want to feel happy and content, in my life, just as a really broad kind of top line. Ultimately, it all comes down to us feeling happy and fulfilled in life. So yeah, you talk about how things are, how you would like things to be. And then we always leave at least one night's sleep in between, because behind the scenes, the process really is already starting. So your subconscious mind everything will be percolating in the background. And sometimes over that time that elapses in between, then new things can come to the surface. And you go, oh my, I'd forgotten about that. Or, oh no, this is something else that I forgot to add in as to how I'd like my life to be, or how I'd like that situation or relationship to be. And then we do the Psych-K session itself. So with the session, you have different options. So it might be if there's been particular events that you would like to release the perception of the stress of, and move to a sense of peace and calm, and that's being able to detach yourself from what happens, if that's relevant. So you'd have the choice of if you'd like to do that, or if there's particular statements that you would like to work on. Or there's also an option which is called messages. So messages can be this can be that sometimes you don't always know what it is that's stopping things from being any different. Or if you've tried other talking based or therapies that are trying to achieve the same result as Psych-K, it can be that missing link to really find out and get into the root cause of what it is that needs to happen. And within that, you can find out whether that's a conscious belief, and in which case we'll discuss around that as to what that's relating to, or if it's something that's subconscious, which means that you wouldn't be able to tap into that knowledge otherwise, other than having that conversation and asking your subconscious mind. And within that, I have protocols to find out what area that might be. So whether it's to do with for example, grief and loss, or personal power and self-esteem, or health. We can find out what section that is, and then find out what the statement is that's that could change everything. And sometimes, it can just be one session and there'll be 4 or 5 statements that we'll work on, or it can be 2, 3. The most amount of sessions I've worked with somebody, and that was for lots of different things, was about 5 sessions. So you have the first session to talk about it, then the session itself, and then at the end of that session, and this will be purely led by you, we then discuss some action steps that will really help to bring everything into reality. So it's all very well having the right beliefs, but then you also need to take the actions for those beliefs to become ingrained, and also for it to just become your autopilot going forwards. And they can be really small, simple things. Sometimes it's just one. It could be as simple as just making sure that you get outside and go for a walk for 10, 20 minutes in a day. Or it could be that, like going back to the journaling, it could be just writing down 3 things that you're really grateful for, for that day. So whatever that is, we'll discuss. And then you'll then decide if you'd like me to catch back up down the line, whether that's just sending a WhatsApp message or an email, or that we hop on Zoom and then just have a quick 10-15 minute catch up as to how things are being. So all of those elements is one session. So
wow, that seems like quite a lot. Yes. So I mean, you're doing an intake and you're doing some therapy on the same day?
No, so there's always that night's sleep in between the talking. Okay. Yeah. So, and it's really important, because it's, when you're ready and you want to get going, but it's a really, really important part of the process, and actually helps to enable that change to happen as quickly as possible, because my intention and my role is to help you to get to where you want to be in the shortest time possible, but whilst at the same time being really thorough and making sure that you've got those the foundations for everything as to how you would like things to be going forwards. So
wow. So I'm just imagining here. So usually cognitive therapy takes forever. This sounds like it takes maybe 2 to 5 sessions. What kind of follow-up do you do then? I mean, do you do it on like a quarterly basis, 6-month basis? I mean, how do you, I guess, judge is not the word. How do you determine if those changes are still continuing for the client that you have?
Yeah, so in my experience, and certainly with the mind body research out there, once that change on a subconscious level has happened, it's there. So with the follow-up, that's partly led by you or the person that I'm working with, in that are they happy for me to come to follow up and check in, because sometimes with the session, I had this conversation with somebody yesterday where they'd said they would like to do 3 action steps, and they'd only been doing 2 of them. So it's that kind of the accountability, because what happens after the session is as important as the session itself to actually create what you would like. So some of it's just me checking in, how you're doing, are you following your action steps? But other than that, it's always led by you. Do you feel like you need another session? By doing the work that we have in the first session, you can then find what you feel is still left or is still not quite right. Or like with somebody I was working with a couple of weeks ago, we did some work in January, and then something else has just popped up in their life, and they're like, hang on, I've just realized something within my own life, and I want to work on that right now. So it's always led by you. I always follow up and check that everything's all right. That things have gone well, and that those changes have happened. But sometimes also Psyche is a bit of a catalyst for then other things going forward. So to give an example of somebody I was working with, where for them, amongst other things, they had a sugar addiction. And so we worked on having the right beliefs and the right mindset, and making the changes as to what the triggers were for them that was setting them off wanting to go for the junk food. Then once everything was in place, to then for them to emotionally not need to eat that food. They thought, do you know what, I now need help as to improving my diet. So then they then sought some help with a coach on a 2-month program to then mean that they knew how to cook all the right foods and eat all the right foods. So they were in the right place to do so, and they didn't feel the need for the junk food, but then they just needed a bit of help as to then, okay, going forwards, how do I eat in a better way? What do I do? But essentially, once you've made that change, there'll always be the follow-up to make sure that it's happened and we've covered all of the areas and all of the angles. But once that's happened, then essentially you're good to go, I suppose, an English phrase maybe.
Wow. That sounds really amazing to me, that this process just is fairly easy. I mean, you did point out that person that realized that something else was triggering them. So that's nice that you allow them to come back and work with you to deal with that. And it says a lot about the process, because you're making the client more aware of what's triggering them and what they can do instead. So that's totally amazing. Go ahead.
It is the simplicity of the process that I adore. I absolutely love it. It's, you get to the foundations of the reasons why, and just change them, and it's that simplicity, and just having the conversation with the subconscious mind and just finding out what it is, and then just for that change to happen. And then, like I say, for that, you're then empowered going forwards to maybe spot those triggers and then notice them and go, hang on, I'm not going to interact with that, or that they just stop happening. So it's incredible when things change on a subconscious level, how your perception and life around you changes a lot as well. So, and I think that's the most powerful thing, is that we are all empowered to be able to make the changes that we want, to live the life that we would like, and also to know that if things aren't as you would like them right now, that it's entirely possible to change that. So, when you're ready for it, then the psyche process just works. So yeah.
Well, I can see how this would help caregivers, because it's a short process, like 2 to 5 sessions, like you have discussed. How do you, what is I know you've given us some idea of the changes that your clients have achieved. How would this affect, I guess, a caregiver who's been carrying on this trauma, and they're really burnt out, stressed out, overwhelmed? How can you address why the time that they set aside for this process would be extremely beneficial for them? Because I know sometimes caregivers don't have time to do much of anything.
And yeah, I can understand that. The biggest thing really is that if you know what it is that you want and how you would like things to be, because you can't change how other people are or what their behavior is. There's times that when you change, strangely, things do change within relationships. As long as you know how you would like things to be, then the process will do everything to help you, to support you to where that is. And it may be that, like I say, if there's a lot of trauma, if that's in the past, then we can release that and allow you to move forwards from it. And if it's relevant to the person that you're caring for, then the process can allow you to, and it depends what you want from the sessions too, but maybe they don't trigger you in the same way, or that you're able to leave the past behind and move forwards, or just accept that's the way they are, but for it to no longer emotionally affect you. And that's then because the way that you are with them, or the reaction that you have to being with somebody or about the past changes, then you will think in a different way. But also, like you were saying, that feeling overwhelmed and things like that, that actually mentally, when these things aren't tormenting you anymore, you have a lot more headspace, and you have a lot more space for what's going on a day-to-day level, to then just to allow there to be more peace or more calm, within your day-to-day life, and a lot less frustrations or anger or whatever those emotions are. But know that whether it's something that's from the past or whether it's something in the here and now, that your thoughts or your feelings or emotions towards it can be different. It's like you just need to know how you would like things to be.
Thank you for answering that. So using Psych-K, can you give us like the 3 big takeaways that caregivers can move forward with Psych-K? So for example, is it resolving trauma? That can you share some 3 major takeaways from the process?
Yeah, so from the process itself, just that it's empowering. That you can, yes, it does help to resolve trauma. So, and you can do that in a really gentle way. So going back to the lady that I was speaking of earlier, that you don't always necessarily work on things directly. So if things are very painful or really difficult to think about, it might be that you don't even need to. And when you do, because we always work at a pace that's right for you, then it will be at a time when you're in a place to be able to. And as far as, because trauma, that could also be linking into PTSD, that those types of things can be helped. So the people that I've worked with in the past, would it be helpful to name some of the types of traumas that where the Psych-K has helped? Or
yes, sure.
Yeah,
that would be helpful. Yes.
So people that I've worked with, they've seen people die in front of them or be run over, or that they've experienced rape or physical and emotional abuse throughout their childhoods, that they've been in abusive relationships. So all of those types of things can all be helped through the Psych-K process. So I suppose the important takeaway really is that if it's the right thing for you, it's really important that whatever you do, you feel comfortable about doing it and ready for it. But that anything that you would like to be different in your life right now, it is possible. So just to know that really is really very empowering. So and you wanted 3 things, didn't you? I think.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I
I
think empowering is great.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I think that's, caregivers need to deal with those traumas in the past so that they can live in the present, like you've been saying. I mean, otherwise, caregiving could be much more challenging for that person if they don't deal with their past. So how can people find out more information about Psych-K and working with you?
Yeah, sure. And just to go back to that, as caregiver, you're doing a huge job. You're playing a really important role, and you're, as part of that, you're kind of giving away. I don't mean necessarily giving away a part of yourself, but it's a very selfless act, and it must be really difficult if the person that you're caring for, if it's not a really easy relationship. And so really in many ways, hats off to you for all that you do. But you also understand that things can be easier. It just helps to lighten some of that burden, really. So but as far as finding out about Psych-K, I have a website called It's All About Health. And so there's information about Psych-K on there, and also other areas of health. We're building that site up at the moment. So that's the the current work that's happening. There's also psych, so it's PSYCH hyphen K, because it's something that can be misspelled. So there is a website as well that's purely dedicated to psyche. And then otherwise, if somebody would feel that they'd like to find out more, then go to the psyche information that we have on the It's All About Health website. I do also offer like a 30 minutes complimentary Zoom call if somebody would like to discuss in person and just find out if it's the right thing for them. Because if it's not, then I may well also be able to help point you in the right direction as well. So that's, like I say, just a complimentary call. And then also available on like your Instagram and Facebook if you just like to stay connected through that way. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Let's repeat that website again, your website again, please.
It's All About Health, and then .co.uk.
Okay, .uk, yes. Got to remember that, yes. I want to thank you so much for bringing this information to caregivers, and I appreciate that you acknowledge that caregiving is really a difficult, challenging job at times. So I appreciate this information because I think some caregivers need to know that there are things like psyche that can help them move some of that trauma so that they can be the person they want to be and have the life that they want. So thank you so much for sharing today.
No, that's a pleasure. And, you know, like I say, it's just empowering to know that there is things out there that can help, because I'm sure at times it can feel really isolating as well to be going through what you are. So, yeah. Yes,
definitely. This can help so much. And I think caregivers need to feel empowered to do this self-care so that they can be have a more rewarding caregiving journey. It's kind of hard when you're not in a good frame of mind with the person you're caring for.
Definitely.
So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you as well.
Thank you for listening to the Caregiver Cast today. Get a community of support, resources, and strategies for your caregiving journey inside the Caregiver Lifeline community. Visit caregiverlifelinecommunity.com. Get involved with the show. Send your email to mpetrusi2002@gmail.com. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Caregiver Cast.